A podcast the other day, shocker, I know, and they were talking about the early adopter mindset or getting in early on trends. And the way they phrased it was, think about what your rich, nerdy friends are doing on the weekend is what everyone is going to be doing 5 years from now. Used examples like meditation and intermittent fasting as things that a few years ago were kind of niche and kind of weird. It's like, oh, what are you doing? You're just sitting there in silence. You're not eating breakfast. And now they're fairly commonplace. And it got me thinking about what are some trends that are on the fringe now that might take off. And another thing is, how does something like personal training or coaching become more accessible to everyone? Because right now it's only accessible to a certain set of people. Training, there's a few options that I can see. It could be online, although you lose the human connection that you get when you work with someone. It could be programs that are personalized, but again, you don't have the same level of accountability. Or it could be a group setting. I think there's the human connection is sort of missing from the online training, but people really seem to like Peloton, and I don't know that the future of training is a Lululemon mirror though, but I think there's just going to be so many opportunities for young trainers, young coaches to make a career out of this. Adapter in coaching has the prerequisite where you need a very strong set of critical thinking skills, because there are so many trends that seem absolutely crazy at first and so much disagreement on what methods to use. Then you combine that with the fact that the field is relatively young, or the field of coaching in general, and that the human body is a miracle of adaptation. So just about anything works. And it's very confusing to know what works and what doesn't. For example, single leg training a few years ago was not super commonplace, except maybe for certain athletes. And now you're seeing even large NCAA schools are like their primary lift is using like a rear foot elevated split squat. Things that seem crazy now that might catch on in the future, things like using machines or a lot of safety bars to eliminate degrees of freedom, so that you're really just training the tissues that you're trying to train and you're not concerned with how functional the movement is. Things I've been thinking about that I'm still playing around with are eccentric overload, so a lot more weight on the downward phase of a movement, and also floating heel movements, because we're ignoring the ankle joint too much. Reminder that even with years of experience, you always need to be open to improving on what you're doing, and that you need to stay curious instead of critical. And that's a lesson I keep reminding myself of.